Mass Effect will continue. Alright, as a very big Mass Effect fan, I have a lot of questions to ask about this, but the biggest question is why? Why does the original story have to continue? The story has been told, it's done, it's completed, so why continue? I know, as of this moment not a lot is known of this project, and the teaser trailer only tells us a couple of things. There are big signs throughout the trailer, including the end card that shows that EA and Bioware wants to continue with Shepard's story, or at least build onwards from it. Which again brings me to this question, why? Cause so far, other than fan service, I don't see a reason why you would continue nor add a new chapter on that story. I am not saying there shouldn't be a new Mass Effect story. It's the fact that EA and Bioware are going to attempt to continue this specific story in the Mass Effect universe that bothers me. Both companies seem not to learn from their mistakes nor seem to understand what they are doing. Especially EA doesn't know what a good Mass Effect game is or what makes Mass Effect so great. Mass Effect Andromeda proved how clueless they were on that end, and Bioware seems lost in what to do for the past years now. Dragon Age Inquisition was released in 2014, which was their last good game. After that, they didn't make a single game that came even close to being good. So these two companies, one with a bad reputation to fuck up big franchises and one with a bad track record, are going to continue or add a chapter on top of one of the greatest stories in Mass Effect and in gaming. I'm sorry, but I'm not buying that for one moment that they are able to continue that story and do it justice. One of, if not the most important factor in the Mass Effect story is that this story is built around you creating your own version of that story by making choices and them actually having weight and consequences throughout the whole trilogy. Weirdly enough, back in the day, this way of writing a story was a staple of Bioware, but as I stated before, they didn't create anything good in the past 6 years. With the current state of Bioware, I do not see them continuing this story properly. As a matter of fact, even in the good years of Bioware, they ran into a big problem writing these kind of stories, and it seems like they are running blindly into it yet again. The big problem here is that EA owns them, and gives them a limited amount of funds, harsh deadlines, and of course force their own ideas on them. In other words, they are a bad influence to writing a story like this, as this kind of story requires a big budget, lots of time, and no EA ideas. And again, this is not a new issue. In Mass Effect 3, this EA problem became clear as the amount of important choices in all the games started to pile up. It became harder and harder to keep up with it all and having them all carry weight. And as time and money became a problem, Bioware had to make choices which choice mattered and which didn't. Hereby removing possible outcomes and creativity for the story, which ultimately led to a rather disappointing ending to the trilogy. I, however, do not think, like many other fans, that the ending of Mass Effect 3 was that bad. I would say it was not nearly as good or satisfying as it should have been. The large accumulation of choices we got to make throughout the series became too much, forcing Bioware to simplify the ending in just 3 very cut and paste endings. But despite the disappointing ending, the Mass Effect story was great because the road you traveled to get to that point was your own. The game gives you some tough, big choices that influence the outcome of the main story, but it's the smaller choices that have the biggest impact on your experience. This also makes the main character your main character. You get to make your own Shepard with the character you want him or her to have, and Bioware back then played in on that. Because of this, the story told then and there felt like your own version of that story, and to a degree unique, even though the main storyline only had a few possible outcomes. But this is what made Mass Effect so much fun to experience, but also to talk about. Everyone has their version of the Mass Effect story. You might have the same main story outcome as someone else, but the road that led you to that ending was completely different. The most important and memorable choices that you make throughout the trilogy are the side choices. They heavily impact your experience but did nothing to the main story, yet still carried consequences throughout the whole series. These choices is what made the game unique to you, as you pick the choice that suits you the best or suits the character you want Shepard to be. The path you walked with your version of Shepard was yours. You had your own reasons when making a certain choice, but so did everyone else, resulting in people making different choices. Talking about Mass Effect felt like comparing answers on a quiz. Everyone has their own reasons why to choose for something, and I enjoy talking about them, even though I sometimes think they chose completely wrong. Still, the ending is probably the most talked about moment in the Mass Effect story, especially the original one, as that one was so bad BioWare tried to fix it with a DLC, which still left many fans with mixed feelings. Still, my ending and the route leading up to it is my version of the Mass Effect story. I rarely met someone that had the exact same experience with the story as I did, which is great, but now it's less great because I suspect that my story with Shepard is about to be forcefully changed. It's a very difficult task to continue a story that had 8 different main endings, and on top of that your own version of a main character, where you decided what, who and how that character is, and what route she or he walked. There are countless of different small choices creating even more variation in your experience, and to top it off, the many romance options. There are so many possible outcomes to take with you into the new game, and you can't ignore them, as choices carrying over from one game to the next is a key element in the Mass Effect series. It's not impossible to continue this story. It's just that if you're going to continue this story, you must take in all the possible outcomes from the previous games. And if Shepard is in this game, because it's not really clear if that's true yet, then there must be an option to transfer your version of Shepard as well. Though even if Shepard is not in the new game, you still have to implement the outcomes of the previous games. The trailer shows the outcome of Shepard's action, so even then there should be an option to transfer the ending you had and the results of choices you made along the road into the new game. There were some big ones in there that would change the Mass Effect universe drastically, so ignoring them would suck for those who picked a different option. It is in the end Mass Effect. In other words, your choices should matter in the continuation of the story. EA and Bioware can choose not to do this. They can just yeet all options out of the window and just pick one outcome from Mass Effect 3 and go with that. However, that would mean they pick one of the endings and on top of that have to pick one of the many possible combinations for the side choices. Did the Geth get destroyed? Is the Genophage cured? Did you let the Reapers live? And you can't skip these choices because they had big impact on everyone's experience and it would be a waste not to use them. Yet if they choose to pick one ending and a certain combination of choices, then they basically accept as publisher and developer that they will make a terrible Mass Effect game, as they leave the core element of what makes a Mass Effect game behind. And while I'm pretty sure that the High Lords of EA don't want to repeat like Mass Effect Andromeda, I still expect them to force BioWare to go this route. Which would be bad, because that would mean my and many other fans' ending to the Mass Effect Trilogy would not fit the continuation, as our ending is different than the chosen canon ending. To me, this would make talking about Mass Effect less fun, because then we would discuss how our end is different from the canon ending rather than talking about how our own experience is different from others. But again, it's not impossible to continue this story, however the essential elements needed to continue a story like this are not there. BioWare claims a team of veterans are working on this project, but over the years, the people that were part of great games BioWare made left the studio. When I hear a veteran team, I hear people that worked on Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, which is not a good promise, and so far they have been very vague about who these veterans are. But sure, I want to believe BioWare still isn't completely killed by EA. However, I highly doubt EA will give them enough time and funds to develop this game properly. To have all the outcomes from the previous games in the next one is possible. You need a good writer and enough time to think it all out and to develop it. Many games in recent years did this kind of writing, and we know BioWare used to be able to do this as well. So in my opinion, it should not be an excuse not to do it or to ignore all choices and make up some random canon ending. If they choose to do that, it's more out of laziness and cost saving and would for me be a big red flag for the next Mass Effect game. Unfortunately, there's a big chance they will do the latter one, as again, EA owns them and they have to dance to their tune. However, even if they do that, it would still be better than how things went down with Mass Effect Andromeda, where the development team didn't know what they were making 1 year before the release date. But if the next Mass Effect game has the same development cycle, it's doomed from the start. And unfortunately, the new Mass Effect game starts off the exact same way as Mass Effect Andromeda. A lot of teases and promises, but radio silence when it comes to deeper information about those teasers and promises. But for the record, I don't mind a new story in the Mass Effect universe. The universe is great and has a lot of potential and stories I would like to explore. What I mind is that EA and BioWare are the ones that are trying to do this. Both companies have zero proof in the past years that they are capable in pulling off something so difficult as continuing a story that's so heavily connected to player choice. Personally, I don't need a continuation on Shepard's story or even a story that happens after it. I would have liked Mass Effect to take an example from Halo, a series that also has a very critically acclaimed trilogy that tried to move forward, but instead of making a continuation on a story that is finished, they went back to other events hinted in the trilogy and fleshed those out. I still love the idea to get a game in the Mass Effect universe that's very similar to Halo Reach. I mean, during Mass Effect 3 we barely see the war on Earth against the Reapers. It's something that was marketed to us for the original game, but in the end didn't have it in it at all. And it would be great to see those events being fleshed out in a game. It's also a good opportunity to show the universe from a different perspective. Instead of playing the all-saving hero of the galaxy, we play as a simple soldier that needs to make terrible and rough choices to protect the people from the Reapers. And the Mass Effect universe has tons of other interesting stories that are very suitable for games. Why not play it safe first and start there, BioWare? Create a spin-off proving that you still got it in you and from there move forward. Your ambition became your downfall once before, resulting in Mass Effect Andromeda. No, I don't have any trust in this game being good, cause with Mass Effect Andromeda I got fucked over already, and after that BioWare hasn't shown anything that proves they can still do this game justice. And I'm not going to make the same mistake again and be blinded or right out believe them because they picked a series that I love and care about so much. Though keep in mind, these are just my thoughts that were sparked after seeing the teaser trailer. I know our information is very limited and only time will tell what this game really is going to be. Maybe the game is not going to be about Shepard or the trilogy and is something completely different. If the Asari we see in the teaser trailer is Liara, then maybe we play as her. That would be interesting. That would be actually very cool. Though how I interpreted the end card, it means that the Mass Effect story will continue after 3 and probably will have connections to the trilogy. Anyways, these are my thoughts on the idea of a story that continues with or after Shepard. Personally, I still don't see the need for this story as there are way more interesting things in the Mass Effect universe to explore. And I know there's no way my silly opinion will change any of this, or stop it from happening. Nor will it be the most popular opinion, as so far reactions at the teaser trailer are mostly overwhelmingly positive, which I do not understand, as there are more reasons to distrust this project rather than to support it. As a fan, I just wish they approached this series differently and smarter. And of course I hope that they don't fuck over Mass Effect again and that they do this great series justice. This is always my hopes as a fan of the series, but when I look at the track record of BioWare and the way EA thinks games should be made, I can't help myself but feel a bit saddened by the fact that a series like Mass Effect is in the hands of these companies and that it seems like they are again pushing this series the wrong direction.